Thank you, Anuj, for joining us today on Let's Talk Business by Realty NXT.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a delight. It's a pleasure to be on your platform.
So I want to know, and I'm sure our viewers also would like to know, that what attracted you initially to real estate domain? Like how this journey started for you?
It's a pretty interesting question. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I did my CA, and then I discovered that it was not something that was really exciting me as much. So I went into insurance thereafter, after having qualified as an accountant. And then I practiced on the insurance side for 3 or 4 years. And then I discovered that that really wasn't my calling. I was nearly 30 by the time I stumbled on real estate. And as I stumbled on real estate, that is when I discovered is that this is really what I want to do. It was a sector which was, in terms of the value, very high, but in terms of maturity, still very emerging, very nascent, very fragmented. It didn't have the system processes. It didn't have the governance that was there either on the finance side or the insurance side. And I discovered is that, if I was to get involved in the real estate sector, I can sort of make a mark by ensuring that this sector gets, positive contribution from, someone like me, rather than getting into finance or insurance, which was a lot more mature, lot more governance was already in those sectors. So I wasn't sure that how much value add I would have been able to do either in finance and insurance. As a result of which, in my sort of late 20s, early 30s, I got into real estate. And since then, I've been in this sector.
So in the beginning, when you had embarked on the real estate journey, you must have faced it being an unorganized sector because there were no policies like RERA in place, and there were no organization as such where you could, bring the Credai wing or Naretco wing. Nothing was there for the committee as such. But what were the exact, key drivers behind you while seeing such kind of market in place that you wanted to start an entrepreneurial journey as well? How did the idea of, coming up with ANAROCK started? What made you feel that this is the entrepreneurial journey I have to take upon, even seeing what kind of market is going on?
So it's a pretty interesting question. I'll divide it into two parts. One is when I entered into real estate, it was like a wild, wild west. There were very little regulation. There was very little, I would say, respect for the customer. The stakeholders were not well governed. The legislation around governing the real estate sector didn't exist. So it was like wild, wild west in the way that, you wanted to do the business you would do, which means is that, as a real estate developer, if you were constructing a building and you had sold it during construction, the money that you were receiving from the buyer, you could do anything with that money as a developer. You could buy a fancy car for yourself. You could buy another plot of land. You could go on holidays. It was not a must under law that that money that you had received from the home buyer was to be utilized in construction of the building. So that's why, I say is that it was really, really wild, wild west until the Real Estate Regulation Act came in. And it was, interesting that, from that perspective to say is that, here we are in a sector where there's very little respect to the customer. And, customer had very little expectation from the developer at that stage. They only wanted the house to be delivered on time. That's all that they were looking at. Not even, the product or the quality, or any value add. It was just about, give me my house in time. I think a lot of the defaults happened in there as a result of which now today, fast forward, a huge amount of legislation, governance, and, discipline has come in, which is the right thing because now it is moving towards maturity, towards like an industry. In the given format, much before ANAROCK in the late 90s, I discovered that my calling was largely entrepreneurship. So I set up a firm called as Chesterton Mekraj many, many, many years ago. And, this is, I said, in the late 90s. It was largely doing office brokerage because offices were a lot more mature than residential. And the reason they were mature is because the developers were catering to foreign multinationals. foreign multinationals went to the developers and said is, we know what we want.
Mm.
You give us what we want. If you don't give us what we want, we'll move to someone else.
Mm.
As a result of which, the foreign multinationals got what they wanted, and the developers in the bargain really learned. That's why if you look at it, these foreign multinationals, largely on the tech, move towards Bangalore, and Bangalore developers are far better, superior, well governed, well disciplined, because they learned from the foreign multinationals. And I thought, is okay, that's the segment that I should really go out and specialize, which was on the office brokerage, in Chester Meghrad, late 90s, going forward. And then 10 years later, I merged that business with Jones Lang in there. And then it was a very, very good journey, which was on the office brokerage platform. In 2014, when RERA, came in,
Yeah.
I would say that now think myself every evening that the residential sector is going to do exactly what the office sector did when the multinationals came in 20 years ago.
Mm.
Now the residential sector is going to do it because RERA has come in. So
Yeah.
fast forward, 2014, when RERA came in, that's when I sort of started to have a discussion with JLL that I wanted to move on and I wanted to build up ANAROCK, which was a residential broking company, because I felt is that residential had reached the threshold, which 20 years ago office had reached and had moved towards maturity. So in 2017, I left Jones Lang and set up ANAROCK, which is really in the residential, selling space. We sell about 21,000 homes now every year in India. So by far, the largest across the board. And the reason for us to have identified this was because we felt now the residential, given the new regulation and given the way the sector is maturing, given the way the judiciary is looking at it, given the way media is looking at it, given the consumerism, the developers and the rest of the stakeholders will need to get disciplined, and which is what we have seen in the last 3-4 years, that they have been pretty much disciplined. That's how ANAROCK really came in. So my origins are not really ANAROCK. My origins are not even residential. My origin is Chesterton Meghraj, sort of late 90s, and it is office broking. And through the transition to JLL, through that transition out of JLL to ANAROCK, moving from office into residential.
But what's so interesting about the Anuj journey is that the time you started this journey, there were already players like international players. As you mentioned, JLL was one of it. Didn't you feel a kind of a challenge or a competition that it would be quite hard for you to, get into the market or get the clients?
Not really. And I'll tell you why, with all modesty. Majority of the international property consultants concentrate on office brokerage.
Yeah.
In ANAROCK, we're really not as deep into the office brokerage as we are on the residential. Residential is 85% of our business.
Yeah.
Whilst in international property consultants, not only Jones Lang, all the others as well. If you were to look at it, it'll be like 90-95% office brokerage. So actually, we are mutually exclusive, because we are like 85% residential, whilst they are 90-95% office. So, the segments are very different, because I knew that in ANAROCK, there is no competition because none of the international property consultants are on residential.
Yeah.
And the reason is not that there is no opportunity on the residential. Opportunity really exists, very large in the Indian real estate market. It's globally, they specialize on office.
Commercial, yeah.
So, on the commercial side. So the intent is to continue to go deeper in the office and not open up a segment which is on the residential, because globally it really doesn't, match with their expectations.
So every journey comes with a challenge and reward, especially when you're embarking on your own journey and creating your own, pathways and creating your own company. What would you say is the most rewarding point during the ANAROCK, where you enjoyed the most, the perks or the initiative that made you think, okay, this is a good move that I've made and this is something, I should carry forward?
I think there are 2 or 3 things that I would say is, one is that you're really redefining it. Because, what we do in ANAROCK, as I said, is, we sell 21,000 homes. It is not a cut, copy, paste of anybody else who's done it in India. So it does to my mind appear is that you're in a jungle, and there are lots of trees and plants and everything, and you're clearing the way. In the IPC world, these IPCs have existed for 200 years. So you know exactly the path that you have to follow. So you continue to follow that path. In ANAROCK, you're the guy who's clearing the way. Now there's good and bad in that, is because you're clearing the way, there are possibility that you'll fall more often in there. But the excitement is that you don't know what is there in front.
True.
And what to expect. And so the adrenaline flows 24/7 in something like this is. So that is, really from our perspective, a exciting journey. The second is, I would say, is the senior team, the senior leadership team. We've been together 2 decades. So, it is really encouraging when you've had, the senior leaders, a large part of that senior leadership together for 20 years or more.
Yeah.
That gives you a huge amount of support to do it. And third is your customers, that they genuinely see the value that you're bringing to them. Is they genuinely feel that this was a gap in the market, and this gap has been really fulfilled. So it is very satisfying from a perspective that you're doing something innovative. I said you're clearing the path because nobody's done this residential in a volume manner, what we are doing it. Second is the ability to be able to have senior talent together for nearly 2 decades or over 2 decades to be able to do that. And third is for the customers, and our customers are largely developers, not home buyers, because we take exclusive mandates from the developers.
Yeah.
So they are our clients. For them to come back and say, look, this was a missing service. And we're very happy to outsource our sales and marketing to someone who specializes. And thank you for being there.
So going back to the leadership team, because it's said that having the right team leads to a successful venture. So in the initial stage, what you kept in mind when you were building your team or when you were employing the right employees, was there any kind of checklist that you went ahead with?
I think there were 2 checklists that we went ahead with. One was, many of us have been in the industry for long. God is kind. We've created wealth for ourselves. So we said is that our tagline is going to be our values, and we identified 4 values, which was integrity, ethics, transparency, and respect. These come up ahead of the value. So if somebody was to pay us more brokerage, but ask us to compromise, either on respect, and respect could be just our office colleagues. A client comes in and starts to demean our office staff or office colleague, we will say, no, we don't want to work because our values get compromised in that is. So that was the first thing, is that the talent that we wanted to bring in would understand that our values are ahead of the value. That money is important, but that is not the only thing. These are the 4 values. And if you look at our tagline, ANAROCK, values over value, that is what it really stands at. These are the 4 values. They will always be ahead of the value. The second, we wanted to make sure that there was an emotional bonding. I think technical competence was really a third or a fourth. It was like, real estate is not a rocket science. You can teach real estate. It doesn't take long to teach real estate. But if there is no emotional connection, if there is no emotional bonding, if there's no emotional understanding, if there is no collaboration going on within the teams, then we felt is that the resource will not be able to get along with us. So those were the 2 large things, is that one, making sure that the talent who came in really understood our values and lived to our values, and it was really not just a tagline that they would just say it. They lived through that. And the second is that they were emotionally sort of involved, understood what our DNA was, understood what our culture was, understood how we work collaboratively, and that's what we looked at it. So, I mean, we've said this often, is that, people say talent is everything. We say is that not really. It is the right talent.
True.
Because if it is the wrong talent, it can really disrupt your journey in there. So it is the sort of right people, and then the right people need to get the right seat on the bus.
True.
Which means that once these people came in, what was the right responsibility for them? What was the right role what was the right authority that you would give it to them. So wrong people off the bus, right people on the bus, and then once the right people were on the bus, then right people to have the correct seats. That is what the approach was.
Interesting. So tell me, the time you started ANAROCK, the priorities and goals from that moment till now must have changed. So what goals and priorities have changed now?
I think the macro have remained the same. So on the macro side, we said is whatever we do want to bring in technology because this is one of the few industries that haven't had the benefit of technology come in as yet.
True.
Other industries that you look at it, tech has really disrupted it. Whether it's food delivery or cab service or whatever. There is a huge amount. In real estate, it hasn't been. So we said is that whatever we do, we will bring in technology. So Proptech, and we've stood true till today. Is that we continue to invest. We have about 150 techies in ANAROCK on a full-time salaried basis who are employed as of today. So 6 years they've been here, and we're continuing to invest on the Proptech, and we're seeing the benefit of that. Is I would not say that we are a tech company. I think we're a tech-enabled company, and I think real estate would largely be in that segment where you will have people who want to sort of physically touch and feel real estate. They'll not just buy online. So that's first is that we've continued to invest in technology, and that was our priority from day one. Second one was that to make sure that our customers continue to feel very satisfied, and we have repeat clientele come in, and which we've been pretty successful. Third is that we said is that we will largely be on the residential. As I said, is 85% of our business is today residential, but we're now growing outside the residential. So it is what else can be done on the non-residential part of it is. It wasn't on day one the play, but as we have continued to grow, we have discovered that our client, which is the developer, is asking for that service, saying is, can you raise debt for us? Can you raise equity for us? Can you help me buy land? Can you value the property for me? Can you provide a best land use feasibility? So those are the one services that we have added, which at the start we were like really residential unit sale and marketing. But given the expectation of the client, we have continued to expand it to move into the non-residential part of it, which wasn't there at the start. But these two things we've been very, very clear is that we want to delight our customer and want to repeat customer. And second is we want to continue to invest in technology because we're seeing benefit. It is not for valuation, as I'm saying is clearly, we're tech enabled. We're not even tech. So it's not about that, no, we are a prop tech and we want to be valued as a tech. I think we're amongst the few companies who've invested so heavily in tech, yet we remain very profitable. I mean, there was a report that came out. There were a number of prop tech companies, and I think there were only a few, one or two amongst 10, 15 companies, and we were one of those which had a profit against that. And we're saying this tech is for bringing productivity, for bringing efficiency, not necessarily for just doing a valuation of the company.
So looking back on your journey, what is the one thing or a thing that you feel you could have done it differently, especially when you have learned so much now?
I think lots of things that could have been done differently. But it is a journey. If you're here and you want to go here, as an entrepreneur, and you're an entrepreneur, you would have started from a certain point, and you want to go to that point. It's not necessarily a straight line. It'll go zigzag, 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 zigzag. When you look at the rear view mirror, you may find that there was an easier way to get in there. Given a choice today, I would have still taken this route. And the reason I say I would have taken this route because we've enjoyed the journey. As they say, it is not reaching the destination, and maybe we'll never reach the destination. It is about enjoying the journey. And the journey we want to enjoy. We want to do the innovation as we go on, rather than say is that if given an opportunity, you would go one straight line. I don't think we would have enjoyed that. And then once you reach destination, you would be like, really, is that what it is? Today, you're enjoying it because you're enjoying the journey.
True.
It's like going on the hills, that you are enjoying the drive rather than saying I can fly and I can reach that particular point.
So tell me, when we are talking about the residential business, there's one particular model, that novel model that you introduced in the real estate market is the mandate business approach. And of course, subsequently, we have seen other players, adopting the same, same way of approach in terms of creating mandate business. But you being the starter and the creator of this mandate business, I want to know from you, which was that pivotal moment where you realize, okay, this is the way to go ahead, especially in this particular market, to create that benefit for the developers, also to have a mutual benefit for both you and the developer.
I think you researched it very well. I must say, it is true. Is that we were the first ones to have really got into the mandate model. There were other residential broking agencies, but they were doing, we call it as open market, not as receiving a mandate, exclusive mandate for sales in the market. It was a tough one. It wasn't that easy. I mean, to go to a tier A developer and say, outsource your sales and marketing to me. It's a tough one because, they're like, why? Okay, we will be happy to, outsource it. But what if it doesn't get sold? Are you underwriting? Are you going to, put your balance sheet at risk for us? Will you pay the balance money, whatever is unsold from the commitment that you gave us? And we would say no, because, we don't want our balance sheet to get into the risk. We also didn't have that kind of balance sheet as well. So it is a tough one to go to the guys. And because the senior leadership had been in the business for a very long time, and they had seen our demeanor over 20, 30 years, that who we are, what we are doing it. We explained where it was. They started with doing one. And then they discovered this is very nice. The sales that these guys are able to bring in is one, much quicker. That means the momentum of sales is there. And second is there is a science that they are bringing in. Whether that science is the way that they're doing digital, the way their technology and dashboard is there, the way they have brought in the artificial intelligence and the machine learning into this is, can a developer do that? I think they can do it. But, for a developer, there's so many other facets. If you look at it, they have to buy land, so their time spent there. They have to get in all the approvals. They have to get the design done. They have to then construct the building. Then they have to do the sales and marketing, and then they have to manage the property. So sales and marketing will be one amongst the six. If somebody wants to specialize, they will be able to specialize. But from their perspective, they are like, if ANAROCK has specialized in it, we might as well outsource it to ANAROCK and let them take on the responsibility. And by the way, over the last 5-6 years, we've seen is that our data remains very secure with ANAROCK, and largely they're able to deliver what they promise. So that's where it started with great difficulty. I think today, God is kind that the phone rings and we get inbound leads from the developers to say, guys, we're doing a new launch. Can you come in, please meet up with us as we would like to outsource this, because we believe is what momentum of sales you're going to be able to bring in, and the science with which you're going to be able to do it, which means the predictability of the sale is going to be far superior than what necessarily our teams will be able to deliver.
But honestly, tell me, in the initial stage, it must have miffed few developers, right? They must have felt that all the control, because for a developer, sales is very important. They would not even adopt technology, but they would make sure that the sales part is in their control. So did you miff few people in the initial stage?
So it was tough. Fortunately, what we did was we invested ahead on the technology. So, our CRM, which is what we built as a bespoke CRM, we would give the iPad to the developer. What that did was the developer would be able to see real time how many leads are coming in, how many site visits have happened, how much closure, how much discussion. At any given time, he could press a button and listen to live conversation that is happening between our agent and the buyer on the call. Okay. So we empowered the developer to say the power is still with you. You will see real time what is happening, how many unattended leads are there, how our people are conversing on the phone with a prospect. And are they being able to represent your brand or not? And how the conversion, how the funnel is being built up. I think that really eased down the nerves because that really showed the developers that okay, this is what the progress is, this is what we are able to see. If we didn't have that dashboard, I think they would have been miffed. So there were certain promises that we were not able to keep in the timeline that we would have promised the developer. But because there was huge amount of transparency through the dashboard, they could see that they're not being able to deliver within this timeline, but it will happen because they could see that the inquiries were getting built up, the site visits were happening, the conversion discussions were happening. Conversion may not have happened as yet, but they could see through the dashboard. So I would say that really helped us to bring in the tech and then empower the client, which is the developer, through the tech so that they could transparently see what on a real-time basis was going on.
So you must have noticed the other players which I've mentioned that when you came up with this model, a lot of people have adopted this model. So what we are seeing currently is when a mandate business is being offered by any company, they want to get involved from the beginning, meaning that if you have taken the land, the construction has started, how the communication, how the creatives, how everything will go from that stage to how it should be portrayed, how the tagline of the brand should be from all the creative front. So of course, the builder takes a backseat and they have to give that control to the mandate business. So what is your take? Of course, noticing all these players in the market, what's your take on that? How it's going for the current market?
I'll answer it in two parts. One is, the market is really big enough. 84% of the Indian real estate market is residential.
Yeah.
Huge market. 16% is commercial and other asset classes. If in 16%, there could be like 6-7 credible IPCs, the international property consultants, then in 84, there could be like 30-35 ANAROCKs in there. So one, that the market is very large on the residential, given that it is like 5-6 times the commercial market is. Second is, from the perspective of end to end, we discovered that it is required because otherwise, you are going to become just arm and leg. You're just going to become a commodity.
Yeah.
We wanted to be the brain as well. To be the brain, you had to be the guy who would do the tagline, who will do the creative. We've now gone back in one more step to say, we will help you design the product. We will help you understand in that micro market what the customer needed. Do they need 2-bedroom, 2.5-bedroom? How big is the kitchen going to be? How an ideal layout needs to be? We will help you do that because we have so much of data in those micro markets. So please take the inputs from us even before you're getting onto the design. Don't bring us once you have done the design and you've done the tagline and you've done the positioning of the product just to do the sales and marketing because we're not going to be effective at that time. But if you have taken our inputs right from the stage that you're doing the product design and have our teams involved, then we will be a lot more effective because we know what the consumer preference is there. What the communication, so once the product is done, what's the communication that we need to do? What is the go-to market? What is the tagline that you have to do? And then comes the sales and marketing. Now, as Anarock, we were not the best guys on creative. We are like many accountants here. Who are there. So, we're like very processed, very transparent, very tech done is. We then went out and bought a company, which was a creative company called as Think Tank. A very creative guy called as Abhishek Majumdar. He owns that. And, he ran that. Through the COVID, we did the M&A with Think Tank because they were creative. And we needed someone who was going to be able to do that creative. The good thing is because the underlying platform is tech, what happens is the moment the sales guy gets a notification on his mobile phone that a buyer has come in and he clicks a button and it connects to the buyer. He speaks or she speaks and then disconnects the phone. And then there are 4 options. If the buyer coming to the site, if they didn't like it, what is it? Is the budget not right, etc., etc. 4 options. So one of the 4 options, the sales agent, punches in.
Yeah.
That real time is going to our digital team who are looking at that marketing. And they're saying is, guys, this campaign is not working. Why it is not working? Because creative hasn't done the right job.
Yeah.
Or creative has put in a very low price just to attract people to come in, but our sale guy is not able to take it up. So change the price, or the communication on the creative is not being able to not being understood by the prospective. So it's a very harmonious relationship right from the sales guy, all through tech, from the sales guy who's saying is that the buyer is not wanting to buy this, to the digital guy to say is either a particular portal is doing well or not doing well, so double down on spending on a particular portal. If they're doing well, if they're not doing well, stop it. Usually this all is a postmortem that you have to do. And third is to go into the creative and says, guys, change creative this very moment.
Yeah.
Because all three sit next to, all the two, the digital and the creative sit next to each other. And they're able to communicate. They're all under one roof as ANAROCK. I think the trouble is where these are all three different units.
Yeah.
Sales and marketing is different. Digital is an outsourced agency. That is different, and creative is a very different outsourced agency. Then it takes a long time for the chain to get rectified, and usually this all happens then post facto the event. What didn't work? We're like, we don't want to do a postmortem.
Yeah.
We want to understand at that moment what are the steps that you need to take to change it. So that's where I think our differentiation is. But having said that, the market is very large.
But market being very large, it must even create a bit of conflict for you guys, where the developers are having this kind of conversation, in terms of pricing. He's also doing this and providing this as, but it's in the lower cost. I'm sure these conversations would have happened in your cabin. So how do you avoid such conversations?
When you say pricing, is it the product pricing or is it the fee?
Total fee they are talking about. Yeah.
So that's in every service.
Yeah.
It depends. As how do you position yourself? What's the value that you're being able to provide to the client? How does the client perceive use? Even in JLF, even in CBR, even in Cushman, they'll have different pricing for different products. It's like a Gucci bag, which is kept in there. That Gucci bag could not necessarily cost that much at which price it is being retailed, but it is the perceived value.
True.
That you're being able to create it. And that's how you're differentiated.
Yeah.
That it is, what's the value add that you're being able to bring into the customer. And depending on the value add, what's the fee that you will be able to charge? At which fee the customer is not going to cringe. Yeah. At which fee the customer will be happy. At which fee the customer believes that there is a value that you bring on to the services that you are delivering.
That's an interesting analogy which you just gave. So I would ask on that further is that I would say the analogy based on what you just said, ANAROCK is in a top premium when it comes to mandate business, right? So I'm sure you have the control when it comes to having a certain criteria or checklist of having what projects or what developers, especially for mandate business. So what are those checklists when you consider such developers or the customers, making sure that it's a mutual beneficiary partnership?
So it's a very interesting question. We made our share of mistakes on that particular point. Is initially we thought any project we take, we'll be able to sell. We thought we were like larger than life. Then we discovered that the home buyer is far more smarter than what we are thinking. The home buyer only wants to buy from a tier 1 developer. If we were picking up a project of, say, a tier 3 developer, with whatever effort we were putting in, even at a discounted price of that particular product, we were just not being able to garner the sales.
Yeah.
Because this market, through sort of COVID, has become very discerning as a consumer. So the consumer is differentiating a better quality developer with a lower grade developer. Even if the lower grade developer was to give free benefits, and give a discounted price to the product, the buyer is just not wanting to buy, irrespective whether ANAROCK is selling or anybody else is selling.
True.
This was our misunderstanding. We thought that if we come on a product of a tier 3 developer and either discount the price or give freebies and we are ANAROCK, we will be able to sell it. No. So that's when we realized that you have to get into grade A developers. because the buyer is only wanting the product of a grade A developer.
Yeah.
They're not wanting a product of a grade C developer, irrespective of your marketing, creativity or spiel or pricing, whatever you may do is. Now the challenge became even different because grade A developer has grade A team, and grade A developer has really sort of a phenomenal sales team to be able to say to a grade A developer that, outsource it. Is quite an interesting dialogue.
Yeah.
Grade C will be happy to outsource it because when they come in, when they look at it, they're like, guys, you're far superior than we guys are. Please take it. But we're saying is we don't want now grade C. Not because we don't want it. We're like finding that the buyer doesn't want grade C, and irrespective of our efforts, we're just not being able to sell grade C. So we moved on to grade 1, and that's where we have continued to add value into ANAROCK, because our thought is that this market will move towards pure grade A developers. And if you have to continue to exist and be meaningful in your existence in the market, then you have to demonstrate value add to a grade A developer. And that you can only do it if you are better than the teams that the grade A developer has.
So I have noticed your journey from the beginning of ANAROCK until now. You're the one of the company who has been adopting technology in fast pace, and you are not shy about the digital transformation, even talking about technology. So let's talk about ASTRA. That's the first technology which has gained patent. Could you tell our viewers what does this tool does, and how is it important to have a patent for such tool?
Can I explain in crude English?
Yeah.
That's how I have understood it. So it has sort of fitted in my head. So as a chartered accountant, I used to audit a sugar mill. So in the sugar mill, when the truck came in with sugar canes, the good quality sugar canes which had more juice were segregated and went to a better machine, and the not so good quality went to not so good machine. So the first thing that the ASTRA does is, the moment the incoming call comes from a prospective buyer. It goes through 72 algorithms immediately at a fraction of a second, and it says platinum, platinum, platinum. That means 1 in 2 chances this deal will close. What time of the day it has called, what day of the week, if it's a Monday at 12 noon, high probability that this is a real buyer that is going to do it. Which mobile carrier it is calling in from, which circle they are calling in from, like this 72 algorithm. It is going and it is picking it up and saying is that 1 in 2 chances this will do it. That lead straight goes to our sales agent. The rest of the leads go to our call center, because also you don't want to bombard your sales agent with all the calls. How will he attend the customer at the site? So it is good quality lead. So that's the first thing that it does. Second is, once he's had a call, say the customer does not want to buy it, he'll try it again, third time, fourth time. After that, he puts it in the dustbin. The lead that it is dead, that the customer doesn't want. The ASTRA goes into the dustbin and brings it around, and he says, this sugar cane still has juice in it. Put it back in the machine. That day when you called, he had either a fight with his wife, or his boss was standing in front of him, or he was not in the frame of mind, and hence he did not speak with you. But this is a genuine buyer. There is juice in this sugar cane. Go back. And that is what ASTRA then gives back to the sales agent, and we discover that gets converted into that. Now the same format is across every, I would say, event. For example, he came at the site and didn't like it, and then you put it in the dustbin. That it's a dead lead in there. The ASTRA goes in there and says, no. The sales agent didn't show him properly, or it was rainy, or they didn't understand it. Call this guy back again at the site. Or at the financial negotiation stage, it failed. It will pick up again and says that, we believe there is still more juice. Call this guy again. He will or she will close on that. That's what ASTRA does. We're the only guys in India who have that patent on that is. So as a result of it, what's happening is that you are really juicing out the marketing spend, because with the same money that you have invested, you're really juiced. So it is the same sugar cane. You're not buying another sugar cane, but you're really juicing it out to be able to get more sugar cane juice at the end. So those are the two different things that the ASTRA does. Is When the sugarcane gets into the factory, the good leads are separated from the ordinary leads, and the good leads go to your best agents, where the probability, and it says on the call, it will say that this is a platinum. I mean, the guy, sales agent, really stands up on his chair to speak with that guy about this is likely to close the deal is. And the not so good quality, then volumes go into the call center. And then at every event, the ASTRA is going and checking it out whether there is still juice in the sugar cane. And if there is juice, then it throws back to the sales agent saying is, please call this guy.
So all these leads, are they like how lead generation usually happens through Facebook and Google ads? Are these leads, ASTRA algorithms are working through those leads also, or okay?
Yes, absolutely correct. Yes. So we generate those leads from social media, from portals, and that is where we filter it out. Exactly.
Okay.
That plus also, because there's advertisement in the newspaper on the hoarding, so you also have people calling from the hoarding or from the newspaper ad, and that is also what the ASTRA is looking at. So it is from social media, but it is also from hoarding, or it is from the newspaper ad, or it is from radio jingles.
Interesting. So, like how we are seeing the AI is coming in, Chat GPT is also there, and people are seeing how it can be used for real estate. How do you see this would be a conflict to ASTRA or a competitor to ASTRA?
I think it is going to be complementary. So what we are now doing is we are putting in bots onto that, is where the bot is going to be able to answer your initial queries as a home buyer.
Yeah.
And that bot is a voice bot in there is, so that it takes away the strain from the agent in there is. That's one. Second is, the bot is being given the sugar canes which AI is bringing out and saying there is still more juice. We're giving it to the bot only. Rather than giving it to a sales agent, we're giving it to the bot and saying is, you have a conversation with the prospective buyer. So I clearly see that this is very complementary. What the bots, AI, and the GPT are doing it. It is making, I won't say that it is bringing in redundancy. Yes, it will bring in redundancy, for example, in the call center.
Yeah.
But those guys will then start to do a higher grade job. There will be a value add job. I mean, look at it. I'll give you an example on the office side. When in Chester and Meghraj we started doing office leasing, it used to be call centers that we used to do it. As I remember in Gurgaon, it was Genpact, call centers. It used to be call centers. Then it moved to BPO, value add, because call centers went to Philippines and other English-speaking low-cost countries. Then it became BPO. From BPO, then BPO started to disappear. It became KPO because it was knowledge. People said Indians are very intelligent, and why do they only do back office? They can do knowledge. From knowledge, it went into IT, software development. That now it has moved to R&D. And there is, so look at it, how the value chain is going up from pure call center to BPO to KPO to ITES services to now R&D. That is happening. Is similarly, I think, is what is going to happen with Chat GPT and bots is that the low value jobs will be done by these machines, and then people will get an opportunity to do better and higher quality jobs. So I dare say, when people believe that there's going to be redundancy that is going to be created, I don't think so. I think it is going to be a better value that the human being is going to be able to deliver, and the bots are going to do the more mechanical stuff that today we are being forced to do.
No, I agree with you on that. Also, I want to know, in 2021, ANAROCK had announced that it's going to raise $100 million for equity on taking Proptech companies that will match to your strategic vision, growth, and expansion. So I want to know, now we are in August 2023. What's been the progress like? What's the update? Which are the companies, currently Proptech companies, that you have acquired? And to follow on that question, I would also know, what is the criteria again in this and checklist that you make sure that you consider when you're acquiring such Proptech companies?
So interesting. So we made an announcement that we will raise $100 million in ANAROCK. It wasn't really a fund to do Proptech. We said we will raise it in ANAROCK, where we would dilute ANAROCK and raise money so that we could invest in Proptech, but that Proptech had to be synergistic to ANAROCK. It wasn't really a fund that was going to sit outside ANAROCK. It was going to be very closely related to ANAROCK, where we felt is that other than putting in the money, we could add value to that. So that is where our thought was. We're still on that journey. We have, because it's a highly profitable company, so we haven't distributed dividends to the shareholders. We've been using all the profit that we throw up in acquisition of the Proptech companies. So we have several, companies on the Proptech that we've acquired or we've invested. I think two large ones that we have is one is on the community management side, which is called as Apna Complex. Apna Complex, internationally it's called as AnaCity. Is pretty large in the Middle East there. In India, it is doing all the residential, and it's moving now onto the commercial side. And the other one that we bought it was My HQ and Upflex. My HQ is a very interesting company, and it is an aggregator of the co-working platforms. Just like what you have 99 Acre, Magic Break, and Housing.com on the residential side. So it is that discovery and delivery platform for co-working, platform. So those are the two where we had 100% equity and majority in the other one. And then we have several others where we have minority interest that we have taken it up. But that's where we are being able to add value. What our thought is that we want to see over the next 12, 18 months, that how are we being able to monetize these before we start to invest more and buy more Proptech is. So we are now in the process of being able to monetize some of these companies that we have invested. If we are able to demonstrate credible exit, if we are able to demonstrate that there is a wealth that was created for the shareholder, for the employees in that company, and there was a value add that we were able to do to the client, then we will continue with the Proptech journey. Otherwise, we'll say, okay, it was a great learning, but we're not going to get into this. But till now, we think is that we've understood the code. We've cracked it. We're going to be sort of looking at making some announcements where we will be exiting, where we will be bringing in strategic partners and be able to demonstrate credible, profitable, sustainable exits of the Proptech companies that we had acquired.
So as ANAROCK continues to evolve and making strides in real estate market, I am very curious, and even the audience and especially the experts are curious to know, when will we see ANAROCK getting into B2C transaction space? Are there any plans in future, or are you considering any potential entry in this particular space?
So the current format that we have, it's more I would say B2B2C, and the reason is that we service the developers who service the home buyer. So it is a B2B and then B2C, and there are certain aspects of ANAROCK which are even today B2C. For example, the community management app that we spoke a short while ago, which is a complete B2C, because that is where society management and his households that you really get into. My HQ and Upflex, which is the co-working platform, is a very sort of B2C. We have another Proptech solution which is called as Home Exchange. That you bring in your old home and we buy it, and you buy the new home from us. It is like a Cars 24 equivalent that you bring in your old car and you drive with the new car from the showroom. So these are all B2C that we are being able to bring in. So even today it is a mixture, but you're right is that it is largely B2B as ANAROCK, but there are aspects of it which are on the B2C. Are we going to go full B2C? I'm not so sure that we will go full B2C. And then the reason that I say is that it's a very expensive affair to go into a B2C, and a lot of our DNA is more B2B. So I would say is that we will be more B2B2C, where we acquire companies where their DNA is already B2C. We will do that.
Yeah, it makes more sense on that. So given the evolving landscape of, real estate financing in India, we are seeing a notable influx of AIF companies coming in, private creditors coming in, debt creditors coming in, and also there are few investors who are putting working capital and investment on the promising ventures. I want to know from your vantage point how this trend will impact in terms of the project, project visibility or project viability, along with the market sentiment and the growth trajectory of this real estate market.
I think it is very interesting because it's a very deep question that you ask. Is what has happened is that Reserve Bank of India has said is that the NBFCs, the non-banking financial corporations, will now be governed under the same law as banks. Previously, they were not governed as the same. That is why they were called non-banking. So the RBI would not govern them with the same spray as a bank, and hence NBFCs were allowed to do land funding, for example, for the developer. So debt would be given to the developer to buy land through the NBFCs. Now that Reserve Bank of India, the central bank, has said is that all NBFCs will be governed by the banking rules and regulations. As a result of it, NBFCs cannot fund for land buying because they are governed now like a bank. AIFs have started to come in because there is now that missing opportunity. Because who funds land acquisition? Either the developer has equity, then they can go ahead and buy it, or they need debt from someone. So they are now going into AIFs and asking credit from the AIFs to be able to buy land and to be able to then launch the project. And as they launch the project, they either substitute that debt from the AIF that they've taken through the bank, because at that time the bank can lend it because they bought the land, they've got all the approvals, they started to sell it, so the bank is able to do it, or they are able to pay back through the sales that is done. So I do feel is that there's a big opportunity on the credit side that exists. Either it is AIF, which will continue to do that, or some of the large private equity may want to get into credit. Part of it is because there's a big vacuum that has got created in that. As you look at it, there were so many NBFCs, who were funding for the developers for land, and suddenly under the RBI rule and regulation, they're not allowed to fund for land. So the developer is saying is like, I need that vacuum to be filled by someone. I do feel it's a big opportunity. There are many AIFs that have been raised and doing well. There are many in the process which are going to be raised. I do feel is that there are large private equity who are looking at the space very closely and says, can we set up a credit fund to fund the developer to buy the land? Once the construction is ongoing, then the banks fund it. Then there is no role for these credit funds. But until such time that the land is purchased, they have a big role to play.
But when it comes to stall projects and the stress project where AIF companies are coming in, they are micro controlling now. They are micromanaging, meaning they are changing the contractors, they are changing the sales mandate, business guys, whoever the builder had brought in the first place. They're changing everything. And this has not gone down well with the developers. So what is your take on that?
It has absolutely correct. It hasn't gone down well with the developers. But what have developers got a choice? Under RERA, you have to deliver it. If the project is stalled and a credit guy comes in and says, I will fund it, but I will fund it not through a fund to you, Mr. Developer, but to all your contractors. And by the way, I will monitor, I will issue the checks to the contractors. I'll put in a sales agent who's going to be able to sell it, and let me be involved. I mean, you manage the process, Mr. Developer. Your name is up there because under RERA, you are the one. It is not the credit guy who's putting his name in the RERA. So the developer is very much involved. But these, you're absolutely right. We call them as last mile funds or distressed funds. They are saying is we're not going to be hands off. We're not giving money to you, Mr. Developer, and then you doing whatever you want to do with that money. No. That isn't happening. We are going to be fully involved to make sure that we give the money to your contractors to complete the project. The contractors raise the bill, we give the money directly. to them is this is a very large fund, and I'm very fond of them. Called as Swami.
Swami Fund.
For it was set up by the central government. What a successful runaway success! I think more than 120 odd projects that they have done. It is, and look at it. They are fully involved in the projects. They're not saying, "Is Mr. Developer, here's a check of 10 crores or 20 crores. You do whatever you have to do." No, we're be fully involved because we want this to get completed.
True.
We want the home buyer to get their homes, and that is the first priority. Now, many developers are not liking it because you're taking empowerment away from them. But many developers are saying is that's great because ultimately legally we have to deliver it. If we are not going to deliver it, we'll end up in the jail. So it's better that we deliver it and let this credit guy play a more active role in this. So I'm personally very happy that the credit guys are taking more active interest and more control rather than giving a check to a developer and saying is do the way that you have to do. Then again there would have been misappropriation.
No, it makes sense because gone are the days when the bank had to give the money and that is not going for that particular project.
Yeah, it's going for something else.
Exactly, and the materials they have showcased, it's not for the materials. There are no materials in the the project. So of course these regulations and these controlling power to these creditors makes sense because then that where exactly the money is going. And having the right team also makes huge difference.
Yes.
Maybe that contractor they are changing because they are doing some misfund with the whatever the material or the cement is coming and all of that. So I agree with you on that point. Coming back to the Proptech, and this is, trust me, I'm going to ask this last. What is your take when it comes to Proptech landscape of Indian real estate market? Because post-pandemic, we saw a transformation. Earlier, where the developers were very traditional, focused on only sales. Now they understand the technology adoption is important. But we have also seen where there have been some unfortunate things where we have seen, the write-off of the companies and all. And it has changed the game a bit when it comes to investors also for Proptech companies. I want to know two things. First, what is your intake when it comes to this Proptech landscape? And what is your take when this kind of misfortune happens? How does it affect the investors and PropTech guys, especially in Indian real estate market, where they are trying to make that mark?
So it's an interesting point that you say is one, how important is PropTech? How useful is PropTech? How significant it is going to be? Is it going to be? Is it essential? Is it going to be a game changer? And second is these failures. How does it impact the mood of the investor, of the various other stakeholders? Because if there is a falling out that is happening, it does take away from the investors' confidence on the PropTech. On the first part, I'm 100% sure that within my working life, we will see a huge amount of disruption in PropTech. I mean, look at it. If you were to ask me 8 years ago that you were to set up ANAROCK and you're going to be selling 20,000 apartments a year, I would be crazy. What are you talking? 20,000 apartments a year? How are you ever going to be able to do it? Now, we wouldn't have ever been able to do it if there was no digital or if there was no tech, PropTech. In that is, there would have been huge amount of leakage of lead, huge amount of deals being done on the side because, there wouldn't have been any technology. We wouldn't have understood it. It would have been harakiri. Sorry?
And duplicacy of leads.
Duplicacy of leads. It would have been harakiri all over the place. You would have no understanding what's really going on. So I'm 100% sure, like every other sector, our sector will get disrupted in that. Would it be completely disrupted? I don't think. I think it will be hybrid, and that's why I think it will be more tech-enabled rather than pure tech. But to say that tech is not going to impact real estate will be wrong. And I'm not only talking on sales and marketing. I'm saying whether it is sustainability, whether it is construction, whether it's planning, whether it's design, whether it's the customer engagement, whether it's building community within your building or facilities, technology will have to be there. So that's first. I'm absolutely determined. I'm happy to have an argument with anybody who wants to have an argument on that. Is to say technology is not going to disrupt or digital is not going to disrupt. I mean, today we are seeing digital has anyway disrupted. Look at the leads that we get. We were pre-COVID 30% leads coming in. from digital. Today, 70% of foreclosures are through digital.
Mm.
And there is, look at it in 5 years, this is what has changed it. Second is a very interesting point where you say is that, what happens to the confidence of the investors?
Yeah.
If there is a falling out. Now, there are two falling outs, A and B. If the falling out is that, genuinely you tried and you failed, people have no problem. Because you tried, you gave it your best shot, you were ethical, integrity was there, you were hardworking, the idea was great, but it is not guaranteed that it is going to be a success. It's business. There is a risk in that, and you will fail in that. Investors have no problem in that, as long as everything was above board and ethics and integrity and the hard work was put in. I think where they have a problem is where all this gets compromised, where integrity gets compromised, where governance gets compromised, where financial discipline is not there. That is where it takes away from the confidence of the investor. So I just want to make sure that your audience understands that failure because of a business risk is still palatable, still acceptable.
True.
But failure because the integrity or the ethics got compromised is not acceptable.
I will continue with my last segment, which is quite famous in our series, is rapid fire.
Oh gosh, that is a scary one.
Yeah,
Rapid
so
fire.
where it helps the viewers to know more about you as a person and whoever role model you are. And I'm sure there's so many aspiring youngsters who are looking forward to know what makes you tickle.
I'm a pretty shy guy, so...
So first question I want to ask you is, can you share the most offbeat advice you have ever followed that has impacted your entrepreneurial journey?
Offbeat advice that you have followed which has impacted your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah.
Don't run after money.
That's a good advice.
Don't run after money. Do good work and money will follow.
If you could have a conversation with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Historical figures, there will be several. I mean, you would want to meet Mahatma Gandhi and really understand what was going on in his mind at the time that he was, doing all this thing. Did he think that, he would meet success? What was the thought behind, the entire non-violence movement? That was done at that time, many times I think is that it takes a lot of courage to be able to stand up, to that and to be thinking through that positively to emerge as a victorious person. I would absolutely love to have that, discussion. What was going on, when he was taking these steps and movements and, thoughts in his own personal mind.
Nice. What's your go-to productivity hack that keeps you on top of your game?
It's on every Sunday evening to prepare a don't do list.
Okay.
Many prepare a to-do list.
Yeah.
Don't do list. That is what you prepare. That this week I'm not going to do these things, which helps you improve the productivity.
Nice. And what's your guilty pleasure or favorite way to unwind after a hectic day?
I think either it's kickboxing,
Nice. Okay.
or it's power yoga, or it's running. Something like that. I would do it.
Could you recall a specific book, podcast, or TED Talk that significantly impacted your perspective on business or life?
There is a book that Kishore Biani has written. Not many people would have read it. It is a very nice book. I think that's the only book that he's written in there. It is very meaningful. If somebody was to read it, I mean, he would have written it about 12, 13, 14 years ago, but a very meaningful book that he had written, and it did positively impact my thinking. The second is, Good to Great. I mean, it's a fantastic book that how do you, as good companies, make it into great companies? How do you make it into sustainable companies that go past, the entrepreneur's life in there? And how does it become an institution, which is a great institution, which really means that, good becomes the enemy of great. So I would say those will be the two books that I would really say have changed my thinking.
Nice. So if you could travel back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what it would be?
I think there will be two things that I would say is, one, celebrate success. I think for whatever reason, we guys don't celebrate success. And I think it's just an Indian philosophy that we don't celebrate success. We're always, if you celebrate success, another like
True,
so, we're like always very skeptical. And second is, don't take yourself too serious.
That's a good advice. Share a quirky or unexpected fact about yourself that people might not know.
A lot of people think is that I am sort of very energetic and very Extrovert. I am absolutely an introvert by nature. And if you were to ever see me on the weekend, I am an absolute potato couch. I would just sit down and watch Netflix and do nothing else through the day. It doesn't matter. And the family knows that if the TV is up there, they can say whatever they can cross, and I will just continue to, look at the television. I can be very non-active.
That would be unexpected, truly. So, if you could invite 3 people, dead or alive, to a dinner party, who would they be and why?
I mean, certainly Prime Minister Modi. Clearly the way that he's been leading it and the way that he's made positive change. I mean, he's someone that has made India very proud in the last 10 years. Second would be Elon Musk. The way he's changing the thought process, and certainly on the Twitter. It would be interesting to have a conversation with him that what is going on in his mind today. What does he want to achieve in that, or does he have a game plan, or does he not have a game plan? I'm sure he has a game plan to do. And third, I'm a pretty big Bollywood buff, and so I would really want to have 2 guys that I can, and maybe I'm saying that because I've recently watched their film Alia Bhatt and Ranveer Singh. I mean, they're like fantastic, guys to have dinner with.
Nice. If in a parallel universe, if you weren't in real estate industry, what career might you be and why?
I think as I said, I would have been an accountant because that is what I studied professionally, or I would have been an insurance practitioner, and that is what I studied if I had not been in the real estate world.
So, what's one thing on your professional bucket list that you are excited to accomplish in the near future?
I think it is really ANAROCK. I sort of live, breathe, eat, sleep ANAROCK. So it is ANAROCK, and to make sure that ANAROCK becomes a large institution where the developers willingly outsource their full sales team. To say it is such a credible platform that has been built. It is such a organization which lives up to its commitment that we have no hesitation in outsourcing the entire sales and marketing of our residential to ANAROCK. And second is to make sure that the teams within ANAROCK continue to remain very engaged, very happy, and sort of have a great time together.
And personally, I'm curious to know that ANAROCK has become such a huge brand, and you still are very active in making it grow, expand. What is your key mantra that keeps you motivated every day, even if you are facing some kind of challenge or failure?
I think, we're still in our infancy stage. We're still in the first few years of our growth. There is so much of distance to be, traversed. I mean, we're only 6% of the market. And there's 94% of the market still left. When you think like that, then you say there is a lot more journey yet to be covered. And, through the journey, you enjoy. As I said, it's not about reaching the destination quickly. It is about enjoying the journey. As we spoke, I would still want to go through the same journey that I went in because I've enjoyed every bit of that journey, and I want to continue to enjoy that journey as we continue to grow ANAROCK.
That's a true entrepreneur spirit. Last, I want to know, as an influential, figure in the real estate sector, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and innovation, especially technology, like the kind of vast knowledge you have? It's very refreshing to see even everyone, especially in real estate domain, are getting involved when it comes to technology.
So, you meet people. I think I do very little thinking in, just in a room to myself. I want to meet up people. I want to discuss. I want to meet millennials, meet these youngsters who want to, bring a positive change in the world. And they are the ones who have the best idea.
True.
In there is, and until you have that interaction and until you have that engagement with those guys, the mind doesn't really understand. The mind will do is what you are thinking that it'll do unless you really interact with the people, and that's when you have a debate, you rehearse, your mind opens up, and you learn newer.
Lastly, I want to know what would be your advice to the young aspiring professionals who want to get into real estate market?
I think it's a great sector to do it. If you were to put in all the assets of the world on one side of the balance sheet, the gold, diamond, mutual funds, fixed deposit, cash, everything on one side, and real estate on the other side, real estate is still more heavier.
Yeah.
So it is a very big sector. It is great that this cleansing process has almost got completed on the sector, and it is now moving towards maturity. So this is a sector that one should look at it, a lot more, I would say, aggressively, a lot more seriously to get in and make a professional career. This is a sector where, say, telecom or insurance or financial side may have been 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So in those sectors today, to make a name is very tough because they're so much more mature.
True.
Or you should have been in those sectors 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
In this sector, it is just starting to really pick up and move towards the maturity. So I would say to the youngsters, it's a sector which is a large enough sector for you to consider it. And in India, we're just starting the journey.
Thank you so much for joining us today in Let's Talk Business. It was a wonderful having you and getting such valuable insights on your journey. And I'm sure there's so much to learn. And in future, we'll have this conversation again.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And thanks to Reality Next for putting this together. Really, I had a good time. I hope your viewers enjoy the same as we both enjoyed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.